Welcome to Cultural Entropy. This is going to be a book review for Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. I know it's a pen name. This is the Expanse series that was turned into the TV show on Sci-Fi and then later on Amazon. I've heard some good things about the series. I've also heard that it ends very poorly. But I'm not one of those guys that like listens to exactly what other people say. I want to go experience myself. This book was very good. That's the long and short of it. A quick summary. Um, Not going to be a perfect summary. I'm just going to say the first half is kind of a murder mystery, and the second half is kind of more of a space opera, gun battles stuff. That's how I would describe this book in a nutshell. It's basically about um, you know solar system wide corporations and political systems. It is very much because uh, the actual author, is a George R. R. Martin assistant, I believe. It is definitely, you could say, Game of Thrones in space. It's probably not necessarily a bad thing. And because as I was reading when I got to the end and I was reading about the author and I found out that he is the assistant for George R. R. Martin, I could definitely see some of those George R. R. Martin influences on the writing. Overall, I thought it was really good. I actually should pull out a quote, and I will do that. So on page 145, quote, if the woman still had a soul, it had been pressed thin enough to see through. Her eyes never registered anything more than mild surprise. And that's like a little bit too purpley for me at certain points, but I thought it was a really good line to illustrate character and world a little bit more than plot necessarily. But that's the type of writing that there are sprinklings of that in the book, where that's like that's interesting. The other thing is it does go a little too long. I think it's 568 pages, the edition that I had. At certain points it does lose a little bit of momentum. The characters do have that conflict type of dialogue with each other, and getting in and out of those scenes where they're trying to express to each other what's going on and how they feel. It can lose a little bit more momentum, as opposed to some of the space battles or the intrigue of the mystery that was going on. But again, I really like the book. I am looking forward to reading the second one. I'm not looking forward to the end of the series falling apart. I thought like I said, I thought it was really good. My other critique of the book, there's certain places where it does have a little bit of the Deus Ex Machina, where I felt like the author was really straining together the plot points to keep the main characters going where they needed to go. Instead of like them organically making decisions, they're basically saying, I will do this, and then someone else going, well, I guess I'm gonna have to allow you to do that. That got a little old. I do remember that I watched season one when it was on Sci-Fi. I think I cut the cord right afterwards. And then I did try to get back into it when it went to Amazon, because I have Amazon, and I was not very, I didn't feel the desire to finish the second season. I think I only got like one episode in. I believe this book is basically season one and season two. I can kind of remember most of season one. The second half of the book, I don't remember being in season one going on. So there is a lot in the novel, and I do remember once some of the reveals were going on in season one, I also kind of lost interest. The better part of the book is the mystery, the murder mystery that takes place at the beginning, and then once it turns more in that space opera, it doesn't quite hold up as much. The tension is let out, even though there are a couple of space battles that I thought were really good in the book. It is harder sci-fi. There is a little bit more of the explanation of the science, or at least the physics, the real world mechanics of what would be going on in space travel and stuff like that. I really enjoy all that stuff. If you kind of like your softer sci-fi, this may not be exactly for you. But overall, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to reading the second book in the series sooner rather than later. I believe that's Caliban's War. I'm looking at the book right now. But overall, I liked it. From a structural standpoint, how I would break down some of the stuff that was going on in the book, it does sort of follow a first, second, third act structure. I didn't get drawn out of it too much, going like that's not how I would structure it. There is a status quo for the characters. They do have all that nonsense go on, and then they do reach that second act where the twists are going on to move the story forward. Um, and then there is a third act. I didn't particularly like some of the stuff that was going on in the third act. Again, Deus Ex Machina getting us places that we need to go. I don't like backtracking. That type of thing was going on. Overall, it is primarily two points of view in the story. There is a point where one of the characters is set up at the beginning. We do kind of get an emotional attachment towards them. It is a nice trick of literature to do something like that. And then you have the point of view of two characters. They flop back and forth, and at certain points they are standing literally right next to each other, and we do get that POV shift. There's some interesting stuff on that from the mechanics of it. If you're into writing and you want to kind of see how some of that goes on, I did like all that stuff. So overall, like, yeah, it is good. It is a recommend. I am going to be moving forward, and should be looking at getting that second book out here probably in a couple of months.